What happens when one of the most photographed women on the planet walks onto a daytime talk show expecting polite questions about fashion and fame, and instead finds herself locked in a tense, unscripted clash with one of television's sharpest political voices, live, with millions watching and no room to retreat? Before we dive any deeper, if you love raw celebrity confrontations, unfiltered talk show moments, and cinematic storytelling that pulls you inside the tension, make sure you subscribe to Prime Talk right now. Hit that like button, drop your first reaction in the comments, and stay with us, because what unfolded on The View that day left the audience frozen in shock. The studio lights glow bright as Kendall Jenner steps onto the set. The applause is loud, almost automatic. She's calm on the surface, dressed flawlessly, posture poised, expression controlled. This is familiar territory. Interviews, cameras, admiration. Kendall smiles, waves, and takes her seat at the table, legs crossed neatly, hands resting in her lap. But Alyssa Farah Griffin is already watching her closely. Not with hostility. Not with excitement. With intent. The early moments feel harmless. Kendall talks about her latest fashion project, the pressure of public life, the constant scrutiny that never truly turns off. The audience nods along. Some clap. It's comfortable. Predictable. Safe. Alyssa listens quietly, chin slightly raised, hands folded. She lets Kendall finish her thought, then leans in just a little. Kendall, she begins, her voice measured, calm. You've spoken openly about anxiety and the pressure of fame. A lot of young women look up to you because of that. Kendall nods. Yay, it's something I take seriously. Alyssa pauses, just long enough for the silence to feel intentional. So how do you balance that message, she asks, with the level of privilege and influence you were born into? The shift is instant. The audience murmurs softly. Kendall's smile tightens, almost imperceptibly. She blinks once, processing. This isn't the usual question. Not framed like this. I don't really see it as something I balance, Kendall replies carefully. I didn't choose where I was born. I can only be honest about my experiences. Alyssa nods slowly. Of course. But when you speak about struggle, do you worry that it lands differently coming from someone with access to almost unlimited resources? The room feels smaller now. Kendall straightens slightly in her chair. Struggle isn't cancelled out by money, she says. Mental health doesn't care who you are. A few claps ripple through the audience. Alyssa doesn't push back immediately. She studies Kendall, then asks, but do you think it's the same struggle? That question hangs in the air. Kendall exhales softly through her nose. I think pain is pain, she says. Comparing it doesn't really help anyone. The audience reacts again, this time split. Some applaud. Others remain silent. Alyssa leans back, then forward again. I'm not comparing pain, she says. I'm asking about perspective. Because when someone with your platform speaks, it shapes how millions understand hardship. Kendall's jaw tightens. So what am I supposed to do? She asks. Stay quiet. A ripple of tension runs through the studio. No, Alyssa says quickly. But maybe acknowledge that your voice carries a different kind of weight. Kendall glances briefly toward the audience, then back to Alyssa. I acknowledge that every day, she says. But I'm also allowed to talk about my life. The co-hosts shift in their seats. One of them clears her throat, then stops. No one interrupts. Alyssa tilts her head. Absolutely. But there's a difference between sharing your life and positioning yourself as a symbol of struggle. Kendall's eyes narrow slightly. I've never called myself a symbol. But people make you one, Alyssa replies. Whether you want it or not. The audience goes quiet. Kendall's voice remains controlled, but the edge is there now. So what's the point of this? She asks. That I should apologize for existing the way I do. A soft gasp comes from somewhere in the crowd. Alyssa's expression firms. No, she says. That you should be aware of how your words land beyond your bubble. The word bubble lands hard. Kendall shifts in her seat, uncrossing and recrossing her legs. That's unfair, she says. You don't know my bubble. Alyssa meets her gaze. Then tell us about it. The cameras zoom in. Kendall hesitates for just a second, long enough for millions to notice. I've worked since I was a teenager, she says. I didn't ask for the pressure I grew up with. Alyssa nods. But you benefited from a system most people never get access to. Now the audience reacts louder, murmurs, whispers, tension buzzing through the room. Kendall's voice tightens. So my work doesn't count. That's not what I said, Alyssa responds calmly. But that's how it sounds, Kendall says, her tone sharper now. Like no matter what I do, it's never enough because of my last name. The room feels electric. Alyssa leans forward. This isn't about punishment, she says. It's about honesty. Kendall lets out a short laugh, more disbelief than humor. Honesty, she repeats. I'm being honest. And I'm asking you to go deeper, Alyssa replies. The audience leans in collectively. Kendall's eyes flicker. Frustration creeps through her composure. It feels like you're not listening, she says. Alyssa responds immediately. And it feels like you're not hearing the question. Silence. Thick. Uncomfortable. Even the studio lights seem harsher now. Kendall inhales slowly, steadying herself. I came here to talk about my work, she says. Not to defend my existence. Alyssa holds her gaze. And sometimes, she says quietly, existence at the top comes with accountability. The audience reacts, some applause, some stunned stillness. Kendall doesn't respond right away. Her expression shifts, hurt mixed with resolve. And in that moment, it becomes clear to everyone watching. This is no longer a casual interview. It's a collision. And it's only just beginning. The silence that follows Kendall's last words feels heavier than the studio lights above them. It's the kind of quiet that presses against the chest, that makes people in the audience shift in their seats and glance at one another, silently asking the same question. How far is this going to go? Kendall sits back, but not comfortably. Her shoulders are squared now, posture firmer than before, as if bracing herself. Alyssa doesn't look away. Her expression remains calm, but there's a sharp focus in her eyes that signals she isn't finished, not even close. I'm not questioning your right to exist here, Alyssa says evenly. I'm questioning the narrative. Kendall lets out a slow breath. What narrative? She asks. The idea, Alyssa continues, that success under extraordinary circumstances can be framed as universally relatable. A low murmur ripples through the audience. Kendall's lips press together for a brief moment before she responds. I've never said my life is universal, she says. I talk about my experience. That's it. But when your experience dominates the conversation, Alyssa replies, other realities get drowned out. That hits a nerve. Kendall leans forward slightly, hands now clasped together. So what am I supposed to do? She asks again, frustration creeping into her voice. Shrink myself. Alyssa shakes her head. No. Contextualize yourself. The word lands sharply. Kendall's eyebrows lift. I contextualize myself every time I talk about anxiety, about pressure, about expectations people put on me. And do you also contextualize the safety nets you've always had? Alyssa asks. A few audible gasps echo across the studio. Kendall's jaw tightens. You're assuming I felt safe, she says. Alyssa pauses. I'm saying your version of unsafe looks very different from most people's. The audience reaction is immediate, half applause, half tense silence. Kendall shakes her head slowly. This feels like you're minimizing my experiences. Alyssa responds quickly. And this feels like you're universalizing them. The exchange is sharp now, words cutting cleanly back and forth. The co-host remains still, eyes darting between the two women. No one interrupts. No one dares. Kendall's voice rises just a notch, not shouting, but unmistakably strained. I'm tired of being told that because I was born into a certain family, I'm not allowed to struggle. Alyssa's tone stays level. No one is saying you're not allowed to struggle. We're saying struggle doesn't exist in a vacuum. Kendall exhales sharply. It feels like every time I open my mouth, someone's waiting to remind me of what I already know. And it feels, Alyssa says, like every time someone tries to challenge that, they're accused of attacking you. The audience grows restless. Someone in the front row nods emphatically. Another shakes their head. Kendall glances briefly toward the co-hosts, almost searching for support, then looks back at Alyssa. This is starting to feel personal, she says. Alyssa doesn't deny it. Because for a lot of people watching, it is. The studio goes quiet again. Kendall swallows. I don't think it's fair to put that all on me. Alyssa nods. It's not all on you. But it's not none of it either. The words settle heavily between them. Kendall's hands unclasp. She gestures slightly, trying to regain control of the moment. I didn't choose to be famous, she says. I didn't choose to be born into this level of attention. But you chose to use the platform, Alyssa replies. And that choice comes with scrutiny. Kendall's eyes flash. So I'm only allowed to speak if I say the right things. Alyssa responds calmly. You're allowed to speak. People are allowed to respond. The audience reacts, murmurs rising, tension buzzing like static. Kendall leans back again, shaking her head. It feels like no matter what I say, it's wrong. Alyssa softens slightly. It's not wrong, she says. It's incomplete. That word again. Incomplete. Kendall's voice drops. You don't know me. You're right, Alyssa says. I know your influence. That line lands hard. The camera cuts to Kendall's face, eyes steady but glossy, emotion just beneath the surface. She blinks slowly, regaining composure. I work hard, Kendall says quietly. I've earned my place. Alyssa nods. And no one is taking that away from you. But it sounds like you are, Kendall says, her voice tightening again. Alyssa leans forward. I'm asking you to see beyond it. The audience is fully locked in now. No phones. No whispers. Just attention. Kendall's frustration begins to surface more clearly. It feels like you're holding me responsible for a system I didn't create. And I'm asking, Alyssa replies, how you engage with that system now that you benefit from it. Kendall opens her mouth to respond, then closes it. For a moment, she looks genuinely conflicted. I try to do good, she says finally. I give back. I support causes. Alyssa nods. And that matters. But, Kendall asks. But conversations like this matter too, Alyssa says. Because charity doesn't replace accountability. A collective exhale ripples through the audience. Kendall's shoulders stiffen. This feels like a setup, she says. A few gasps. A few claps. Alyssa's eyes narrow slightly, not angry, but firm. A setup would imply dishonesty, she says. I've been very clear. Kendall shakes her head. I came here expecting a conversation, not a cross-examination. And I expected, Alyssa replies, a willingness to sit in discomfort. The tension now feels almost physical. The co-hosts exchange uneasy glances. A producer's voice crackles faintly through an earpiece off camera. Kendall takes a deep breath, visibly steadying herself. I'm uncomfortable, she admits. But I'm also feeling judged. Alyssa pauses, then says carefully, being questioned isn't the same as being condemned. Kendall looks at her. It feels like it right now. Another long pause. The room seems to hold its breath. Alyssa's voice lowers slightly. Then maybe this is the moment, she says, where we stop defending and start listening. Kendall's eyes flicker. Something shifts, not surrender, not agreement, but realization. She doesn't respond immediately. And that hesitation, brief, silent, unmistakable, tells everyone watching that the conversation has reached a deeper place. Because whatever happens next, it won't be rehearsed. And it won't be easy. The hesitation lingers longer than anyone expects. Kendall's silence isn't empty, it's loaded. The audience can feel it, leaning forward almost instinctively, as if her next breath might change the direction of everything that's been said so far. She finally exhales, slow and controlled, and looks directly at Alyssa. I am listening, she says. But it feels like you asking me to apologize for something I didn't do. Alyssa doesn't rush her response. When she speaks, her voice is steady, deliberate. I'm asking you to recognize how proximity to power shapes perception. The words sound clinical, but the impact is anything but. Kendall shakes her head slightly. That's such an abstract way to talk about real people, she says. About me. A murmur ripples through the audience again. The emotional lines are clearly drawn now. Alyssa leans back, then forward, keeping her tone measured. It only feels abstract when you're not the one being overlooked, she says. Kendall's jaw tightens. You keep implying that I don't see people, she says. That I'm disconnected. And that's not true. Then help us understand your awareness, Alyssa replies. The co-hosts glance at one another. This feels like a turning point. Kendall straightens in her chair, eyes focused, voice firming up. I know I'm privileged, she says. I've never denied that. But privilege doesn't cancel responsibility, pressure, or pain. A small wave of applause breaks out. Alyssa nods. Acknowledging privilege is a start, she says. But it's not the end of the conversation. Kendall exhales sharply. It feels like the goalposts keep moving. Because the conversation keeps evolving, Alyssa responds. The tension sharpens again. Kendall's voice rises slightly, not yelling, but edged with frustration. No matter what I say, it feels like it's never enough. Alyssa looks at her closely. Maybe because this isn't about you alone, she says. It's about what you represent. Kendall's eyes flash. I didn't ask to represent anyone. But you do, Alyssa replies. That's the reality of influence. The audience reacts, some nodding, others visibly bristling. Kendall leans forward, palms pressing lightly against the table now. You talk about influence like it's something I'm abusing, she says, when all I've tried to do is be honest. And honesty, Alyssa says calmly, isn't neutral when it comes from the top. The studio goes quiet again. Kendall's voice softens, but there's emotion beneath it now. Do you know how exhausting it is, she asks, to constantly feel like you have to justify your humanity? That question lands hard. Even Alyssa pauses. The audience is silent. For the first time, Kendall's composure cracks just enough to reveal vulnerability. People don't see the nights I couldn't breathe from anxiety, she continues. They don't see the pressure to be perfect, to never mess up, because the world is waiting. A few audience members nod slowly. Someone whispers, that's real. Alyssa listens intently, then responds gently, but firmly. And people also don't see the nights others spend wondering if they'll ever be seen at all, she says. Kendall swallows. So where does that leave me? She asks quietly. It leaves you with power, Alyssa says. And power asks more questions than comfort. The co-hosts sit frozen. This has moved far beyond debate. It's emotional now. Kendall shakes her head, voice trembling just slightly. It feels like you're telling me my voice is dangerous. Alyssa replies without hesitation. I'm saying it's powerful. The distinction hangs in the air. Kendall looks down for a moment, then back up. Then why does this feel like an attack? Because accountability often does, Alyssa says. The audience murmurs again, conflicted. Kendall's expression tightens, frustration resurfacing. You keep saying accountability, but you haven't said what you actually want from me. Alyssa meets her gaze. Awareness without defensiveness, she says. And space for other stories alongside yours. Kendall lets out a short breath. It feels like you asking me to step aside. No, Alyssa responds quickly. I'm asking you to step with others. The room quiets again. Kendall leans back, processing. Her voice is calmer now, but heavy. I don't think people want nuance, she says. They want someone to blame. Alyssa considers that. And sometimes, she says, they want someone to listen. Another pause. Kendall looks around the studio, at the audience, the cameras, the co-hosts. The scale of the moment seems to sink in. I didn't expect this, she admits. Alyssa nods. Neither did most people watching. Kendall's lips press together. I feel like I'm being put on trial. Alyssa answers quietly. I think you're being invited into a larger conversation. The tension doesn't disappear, but it changes. Less combative. More bruised. More complicated. Kendall sits back, arms folded loosely now, not defensive, guarded. I hear you, she says. But I don't agree with everything you're saying. Alyssa gives a small nod. That's okay. The audience reacts, some applause, restrained but sincere. Kendall looks at her, surprised. It is. Yes, Alyssa says. Disagreement doesn't mean disengagement. Another beat. Another silence. The producer's voice crackles again, more urgent now. Time is running out. Kendall takes a breath. Then maybe, she says slowly, this conversation doesn't end here. Alyssa holds her gaze. It shouldn't. The audience applauds, this time not loudly, but meaningfully. Because everyone in that room knows the same thing. Whatever happens next, whatever's said when the cameras stop rolling, will matter just as much as what's already been said. And the aftermath is about to be louder than the clash itself. The final seconds of the segment tick away under bright studio lights that suddenly feel too harsh, too revealing. The theme music begins to rise softly, trying to reclaim control of a moment that no longer belongs to the show. Applause breaks out on cue, but it's uneven, polite in some corners, hesitant in others. Faces in the audience are tight with emotion, eyes darting between Kendall and Alyssa as if searching for a clear winner that never arrives. Kendall stands when the host signals the close. Her movements are composed, practiced, but there's a stiffness to them now. She offers a small smile to the audience, grateful, guarded. Alyssa rises as well, smoothing her jacket, her expression professional and calm, though her eyes carry the weight of everything just said. They turn toward each other. The handshake is brief, firm, respectful. No smiles linger. No words are exchanged. The cameras catch it anyway, slow motion later, analyzed frame by people who weren't even watching live. As Kendall walks off the set, a few audience members clap harder, as if trying to reassure her. Others remain silent, arms crossed, processing. Backstage, assistants move quickly, whispers bouncing between headsets. A producer murmurs something apologetic. Kendall nods once, says nothing, and keeps walking. Her phone is already buzzing. Alyssa remains on set for a moment longer, conferring quietly with the co-hosts. One of them leans in, voice low. That got intense. Alyssa exhales, nodding. Yeah, she says. But it was real. When the cameras finally cut, she sits back, expression thoughtful, knowing exactly what's coming next. And outside that studio, the moment detonates. Clips flood social media within minutes. Not the opening pleasantries. Not the fashion talk. The confrontation. The pauses. The looks. The lines that landed hardest. Captions sharpen instantly. Kendall Jenner called out on live TV. Alyssa Farah Griffin puts Kendall on the spot. This Kendall Jenner moment has everyone divided. Hashtags climb at lightning speed. Hash Kendall vs Alyssa. Hash the view clash. Hash privilege debate. Hash live TV moment. Fans take sides fast, and loudly. One post explodes across timelines. Kendall handled that with grace. Stop tearing women down. Another racks up just as much engagement. Alyssa asked what needed to be asked. That wasn't an attack, that was accountability. Comment sections turn into battlegrounds. Long threads dissect tone and intent. Did Kendall grow defensive? Or was she protecting her humanity? Did Alyssa push too hard? Or did she refuse to let the conversation stay comfortable? Cable news picks it up by the evening. Panels debate it like a political event. Cultural commentators weigh in with think pieces before midnight. A fashion columnist writes that Kendall looked visibly shaken. A political analyst calls Alyssa's approach measured but relentless. A media critic sums it up in one line. This wasn't about Kendall Jenner. It was about who gets to tell the story. Kendall stays quiet. No Instagram story. No tweet. No carefully worded statement. The silence becomes its own message, interpreted 1,000 different ways. Some call it maturity. Others call it avoidance. The speculation grows. Paparazzi catch her 2 days later leaving a studio. Someone shouts, "Do you regret it?" She pauses for a fraction of a second, just long enough for cameras to click, then steps into the car without answering. That pause becomes a headline. Alyssa breaks her silence first, but carefully. On another show, she's asked about the exchange. She doesn't escalate. She doesn't apologize. She speaks calmly about necessary discomfort and the responsibility that comes with influence. She says the conversation wasn't about winning, it was about honesty. She wishes Kendall well. The internet reacts all over again. Then, late in the week, Kendall posts a single photo. No caption. Just her, walking alone, expression unreadable. The comments pour in, supportive, critical, conflicted. It becomes one of her most engaged posts of the year. People begin to notice something else. The conversation has shifted. It's no longer just about Kendall or Alyssa. It's about platforms and power. About who gets questioned and who's protected. About whether vulnerability can coexist with privilege. About whether accountability always feels like an attack. College classes discuss the clip. Podcasts replay it line by line. Dinner tables argue about it. Some viewers say it changed how they see Kendall. Others say it changed how they see talk shows. Many say it made them uncomfortable, and that's exactly why it mattered. Days later, a short clip circulates from a private event Kendall attends. She's speaking offstage, casually, without cameras positioned inches from her face. Growth doesn't happen when you're comfortable, she says. And being challenged doesn't mean you're being erased. The clip goes viral. Alyssa sees it. Those close to her say she nods when she watches, thoughtful, not triumphant. No follow-up comment. No victory lap. Because there was no winner. What happened on that stage wasn't a meltdown or a publicity stunt. It was a collision between lived experience and public influence, between vulnerability and accountability, between two women unwilling to back down from what they believe. And that's why it still echoes. Now it's your turn. Whose side did you lean toward? Or do you think this moment was bigger than sides? Did Kendall deserve space to speak her truth? Or did Alyssa ask the hard questions that fame can't shield you from? Drop your honest opinion in the comments. We read every one. And if you want more explosive moments, real tension, and cinematic storytelling that puts you inside the clashes everyone's talking about. Subscribe to Prime Talk right now, because the next confrontation might already be unfolding, and you won't want to miss it.